said to me, "This is the interpretation of this vision which you saw. The eagle whom you saw come up from the sea is the fourth kingdom, which appeared in a vision to your brother Daniel, but it was not explained to him as I now explain it to you or have explained it. Welcome to the history of the eagle." Our tale begins in a well-known passage of which little is known, for it is shrouded in mystery. Then God said, "Let swarm the waters with swarms." So our first word we're going to need to look at here is swarms. Pay attention to sarets, the swarms of souls living, and birds, winged things, use their wings, you can see it's similar, upon the earth, upon the face of the rakia of the heavens. So what else we learned is upon the face of the rakia in the previous day. He gives them in the rakia is the sun, moon, and the stars, the rakia of the heavens, maybe a little bit like the 7-branch candlestick. That's to give lights. If it's the 7 wandering stars, the planets, then we have the sun and the moon, which could symbolize the bride and the groom in the Bible. So these winged things automatically tying in, though, with you look up and you see them across the face of the rakia, just like you see the stars. And then, so here's what his intent is. 2 things, very simple. And what does he do? He creates dragons. When we look at this word, great dragons, and at all soul the life. So far, soul the life, going back to what he said. But now, instead of saying swarms with swarms, it's move. So here's our other word we need to pay attention to, is the movers. This is going to be our swarmers, sarets, and ramas is going to be our movers. We're going to see that on the land. So the life, the moves, which swarms the waters, 2 kinds of them, and at all winged birds, 2 kinds of them, and God saw since good. So now we're going to move on to the 6th day. And just like the waters brought forth, the earth is now going to bring forth, or it's going to go out from the earth, souls, the life. All right, so first of all, what we notice here is all life. It says all life. Okay, so here's our first clue. All the souls, the living souls. And it said for Eve that she would be the mother of all living. So what happened between great sea monsters, dragons, being connected with all living souls that move, but specifically in the waters? And what does it mean that Eve is the mother of all living? So we can see this first kingdom already emerging here, the eagle, where they are connected with all living souls. And the next kingdom would be the kingdom of man, that this right is taken from the angels and given to mankind. So here, let's look at the creatures on the 6th day. So we have souls living, 2 kinds of them. And here's our classifications. We have cattle, behemoth. So usually like oxens, tamed things.
Look at 5 minutes now.
And we have the moving things.
Stop.
Here's our word
That's
for
5 minutes now.
remes that we saw. And life of the earth.
Stop.
So that's our 3 kinds. To understand this third classification, it's good to use the word moves, because while they move upon the earth, they also move the ground. So here it's not saying earth, it's saying ground. So these are the movers of the ground, like a mouse. In regard to these 3 classifications of land animals, it says he said, and then he made. Now let's look at humans. It says he said, and then he created. So let's look at this word before we get to our other words and see its uses in chapter 1. He created dragons, and he created man. So create is like he's making a space. It's something new. So here are what's these 2 specific things. So now we need to go to our word for dragon and see how that word is used. Tanin, it comes from a root that could mean to elongate. And this is just how it gets translated. This does not mean this is its actual meaning. So you can at least see that it gets translated as a dragon, and then the dragon lost its wings. We learn this in the Apocalypse of Abraham, that the serpent had wings at one time, and that could have been what made it a dragon. And maybe there was some kind of interbreeding, and that's how we get dinosaurs, that they're like a knockoff of dragons, just a speculation. So here's the uses of this word. And then we need to go to our 2 words, our 2 classifications, the movers and the swarmers. So the swarmers, so they must reproduce a lot to travel in swarms. They're in the water. And we can note that when the seed apparently intermingled with Eve, when she had that interaction with the serpent, with Satan in the garden, that what changed is now she was able to conceive more than she would have been able to conceive before. So she became maybe more like a swarmer. This one is we're translating as a mover, and this one is a swarmer. Sharats. And so here you can see the waters swarming with swarms. There's a verb form and a noun form of this word. And then we're going to see it again with Noah's flood. So all creatures that moved on the earth perished, birds, livestock, animals that lived on the earth, and every swarming thing. So he did not take these into the ark. He did not take the swarming things that swarmed upon the earth into the ark. So what he took into the ark were the movers of the ground. Here is the verse of the birds according to their kind. So these things that did not intermingle seeds, and of the animals according to their kind, and of every crawling thing of the ground according to its kind. So now we're going to learn what specifically he originally made in the waters, where he's blessing mankind to be fruitful, but already he's warning them that they need to subdue and rule with authority over the earth for some reason, right? And now we're saying specifically the fish of the sea, not other things of the sea. He's saying the fish of the sea and the winged things of the sky. Those are 2 classifications, like what he was originally making, and over all the life that moves upon the earth. So back to our word for swarming. Now with the flood, he wiped out doesn't say this for the other things, every swarming thing that's upon the earth, because that's not what he created. All the creatures that moved on the earth perished, birds and every swarming thing. But then in Leviticus, we learn that there's unclean swarming things that a person could touch, assuming this is something on the earth. Then that would mean that the interbreeding happened again. And we know that they probably had to wipe out the land of Canaan because that seed had become mingled. And then also in Leviticus, that does not have fins and scales among the swarming things, they are detestable abomination to you. So why would it be called unclean? Probably because it's not producing after its original kind. That was some kind of intermingling of the seed. Okay, so something that you notice about unclean animals is that a lot of them have a slit in their eyes. Like a cat has a slit in its eyes, but not others of the cat family. And there might be a couple birds, like a breed of owls or something, that might have a slit in its eyes that I had seen. But I would say that if it has a slit in its eye, that's an indication that it's related to the serpent, the dragon, or it might be like a swan that has a snake-like neck that could indicate some kind of interbreeding. And the one animal that's unclean that probably isn't related directly to the serpent could have been because they were cursed at the Tower of Babel, and this used to be human flesh. And so when people eat pigs, they're really just being carnivores. So that's quite an abomination. So correction, that a ground mover may not be a mouse if this is the correct translation. A lot of these are disputed because they just don't know what these animals are. But it does say that every swarming thing that swarms on the earth is an abomination. It is not to be eaten. So swarming things are not moving things. He made the moving things to move the earth, so whatever those are, but now they had to have been clean. Whatever he makes is good, but the things that are swarming upon the earth, those are an abomination to you. I would think that swarming things are things that have like large litters, that multiply a lot. So this also includes anything with wings that goes upon the earth, because he made the winged things on the fifth day, not on the sixth day. That's not in the classification of a behemoth, a life of the field, or a ground mover. Maybe a ground mover might be something more like a rabbit, even though what gets translated as a rabbit, that is unclean. There's very few mammals that are unclean. And it's disputed about a rabbit because they don't think that chews the cud. There might be certain breeds. So most rabbits might not be unclean. It might be something like a fox or a rabbit, because we have these three classifications, right? We have like wild animals and tame cattle. And then we have like these ground movers that might be like a fox that burrows in the ground, or like a rabbit perhaps. And that's my speculation. So this first section here probably includes the cattle, the life of the field, and the movers of the earth. And so as long as it has a hoof, it's clean, and it also has to chew the cud. So there's 4 exceptions here that have one or the other, and all of these are unclean. So one of these might be an example of a ground mover. Another one might be an example of like a cattle, those tame things. But basically you have like wild animals that chew the cud and have hoofs that you can hunt like for game. And then you have like cattle, if that's a good understanding of what life of the field is, or behemoth might be the cattle. I'm going to swap that around. That it's probably covering all of this category. And then it goes over the birds, the fish, 3 categories here. And then the 4th one, all of it is unclean. The swarming things that swarm upon the earth, it is like insects, mice, all of these are unclean to you. So not what he originally created, if we're correctly understanding unclean. now we want to compare swarming, which multiply greatly, to moving, that move the earth, that move the ground. So you can see they are not mentioned as unclean things, these movers. And we do see this word swarming here. So just like the woman was able to multiply her seed abundantly after this sort of intermingling, this interaction she had with the serpent, it says, multiplying like numerous, I will multiply. It repeats this word here in a couple different forms. Your toil, which is the same word for the man. So she's going to toil with the man tilling the ground. And what else gets multiplied is conception. So this is not a curse. The woman did not get cursed. The man, the ground got cursed for his sake. But the serpent got cursed because the woman was deceived. So here, this is conception and pregnancy. So she's going to get more pregnancies now. And we learn that after the flood, these moving things, ramas is our word for moving. They move, the movers that move upon the earth. So not winged, okay? And that they will be fruitful and now multiply upon the earth so that they will breed abundantly. Here is our verb form for sharats. This is the ones that were where the waters were teeming with swarms. Now he's saying that the movers can swarm, can breed abundantly. So you note he did take moving things of the ground according to its kind, but then it says that the swarming things he wiped out all of those. So then what comes out of the ark, he says, now all food is clean. You can eat all the moving things that are alive. They can be food for you. So all food now is clean right after the flood. There can't be any unclean animals. So what we're learning is that the swarming things that multiplied abundantly were in the waters, and then they moved up on the land and needed to get destroyed at the flood. But then we see unclean animals again that he's saying are all an abomination. The swarming things, not the moving things, are all an abomination to you, and you cannot eat them, but you can eat all the moving things. So we'd understand that all the animals that he made on day 6, they must have all had hoofs and chewed the cud. So we learn about our 4 lives called creatures, they're cherubim, that they all have hoofs, so they're clean. It's the figure of a man, they have hands of a man, they have 4 to 6 wings, they all have hoofs, and if they're combined, they have 4 faces, or they could have the faces of a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle, the eagle being the 4th kingdom. But so what we're learning we're going to rewind again, that the eagle, this kingdom that's led by the eagle, is coming from the water. So we've looked at the final 3 days of creation of the 6 days, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th days will parallel the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd days. So we did mention the lights that were created before the fish and birds, how they were placed in the firmament, in the rakia. So the first day he has light and darkness, and that parallels with the 4th day where he's setting these lights in the firmament. And then the 2nd day, there's a division of water. So that's important for us because there's waters that fall below this beaten work, and then the waters which are above. And that's going to parallel with the fish and the birds that come from these waters. It says that the waters swarm and let the birds fly above the firmament, the face of the firmament. So where are the birds coming from? It seems to be like moisture in the air or something, that they all seem to be coming from the water. And we can kind of confirm this because the things that are made on day 6 are coming from the earth. The earth is drawing this out, bringing this forth. So they're taking after like the seed that's in the earth, and the birds and the fish are taking after like the seed that's in the water. So then what parallels with day 6 is going to be day 3, where people are compared with trees, with plants that are all supposed to bear fruit. It's believed that Adam fell on the 6th day before the Shabbat. All he needed to do was make it through the 7th day. So it should not be surprising to us if like these dragons that were made on the 5th day also kind of began to show their corruption, and then man, but the life is not declared to come from Eve until after this fall. So it's kind of like in limbo where man is told to take rule. So here it says he founded the world on the seas and those that dwell therein, and established it on the floods. Okay, so the ones that he's giving the rule to, they're supposed to kind of bring healing, help people out, teach them good mysteries. And so we know that like the devil and his angels did not do this. They taught worthless mysteries. But also like the second one, when he's passing on to the man-faced humankind, that they also did not do good at spreading this light. So angels then being connected with stars and these 7 wandering stars, taking us back to these first 3 days. So in between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, the earth then becomes void, which just takes us to the state of her being void, and God does not create her void. So it seems like this darkness was like a culprit, darkness being tied in with a dragon, but then him forming the angels then probably at the end of day 1, because it's paralleling with day 4, stars also making the angels at that time. But then there's this battle that Job talks about where they're shouting together, but it's more like a war cry. And so then there's like another sad fall. So darkness enters first, and then light responds each time in between day 1 and day 2. So then he's having to separate the waters with this rakia, kind of seal in this taint, this where we're getting our souls from. We're coming from the water, or we're coming from the land. And maybe half of the earth was kind of pure and the other half not pure, like the idea of the top part is a virgin and the bottom part is a serpent. You can see that in mythology. So knowing that they're coming from these seas, right? He's founded it upon the seas and established it. Parallel meaning is that upon the rivers, but river coming from a word that means light, shine. And so these waters that are, what ends up coming to form together to form waters, it wasn't quite waters yet. It could be coming from these 7 wandering planets, these stars, and due to their choices where they're battling against each other, according to the book of Job, that there's some that fall below to this beaten work and some that are above. And so now what's coming out is like this new creation. As you can see, Leviathan is a water creature, so made on day 5. But what does he do? He comes up on the land into the Garden of Eden. So what we've seen is this intermingling of the seed, where what was swarming in the waters is coming up on the land. And then this serpent was cursed. You can see it's called a dragon, a crooked serpent, a piercing serpent. So Messiah says he's the cornerstone, the lamb that was slain since the foundation of the world paralleling with Cornerstone. And here we can see that they sang together and they shouted for joy, but that's not a good translation because it's more like one is doing with a cry of alarm and noise, like for battle, and the other ones are singing aloud, such as in triumph. And we know that the morning star is Lucifer. So this would have been what most likely happened on day 2, which parallels day 5 when we have the birds and the fish. And so we have this imagery of water. So what is the water in heaven is probably not like seas because it never came together to be formed into seas. Is something else. We only know it as water. And then that these that fell below would be within this rakia, and then from there we have birds and fish. So what these angels should have done, we know that the first sons of God were angels, most agree with that, is that they should have shared the eternal gospel to proclaim it to those who dwell on the earth. But instead, they're like these unclean birds that all tend to be birds of prey. So they could have all kind of been tied in with these seraphim, cherubim, things with wings, and they're supposed to bring healing and other things that the messengers are supposed to do, and instead they're attacking the earth. So it would have been something more originally like a phoenix. And in mythology, I think in the stories, sometimes the words get mixed up where it could be called either an eagle or a phoenix, at least as far as I remember. So here you can see the outline of an eagle looking, would be eastward, but the map is upside down, so looking this way. And then like in the grasp of the eagle's talons would be like Israel, like peace, olive branch. And so you can see it has 2 wings. And then if we swap around to America, then there's like an eagle with only 1 wing, as you can sort of see this. It could be, it's just something you can see where it's facing eastward, and it could just have 1 wing and 1 wing missing because there could be lands missing. But if a land got burned up, destroyed, if it was founded on the waters, on like the phoenix, then it would re-arise from the ashes. Just a little bit of speculation there. But one of the viewers was asking a question about the difference between a vulture and an eagle, which we can get into next time. But just to point out that this is what it could have originally looked like, more like this, but they lose their light, they lose their whiteness. And so if all the white feathers fall off, then we have something more like a griffin vulture, which he was pointing out that would be what lives in the land of Israel. Hera was associated with the cuckoo and later the peacock. In Egypt, the phoenix usually depicted as a heron, but in classic literature as a peacock or an eagle. So that's as far as we can get for part 1. Thanks so much for joining, and I pray you are blessed.